Welcome back to AV Weekly, the nerd culture podcast. Here we'll talk about our favorite pop culture mediums, whether it be books, movies, or TV shows. On this episode, me and Victor are going to talk about a movie we both saw.
Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, The Shining.
Now, I'm Agustin Lopez,
And I'm Victor de Luna.
and this is AV Weekly. Alright, so this movie takes place in this isolated hotel in the Rocky Mountains, and due to money constraints, they close down during the winter and leave the task of maintenance to a small group of people, and these people are supposed to stay there in the frigid mountains for 5 months.
And so that's where our main characters come in. Jack Nicholson's character, Jack Torrance, his wife, Wendy Torrance, and their son, Danny Torrance.
And these are going to be the 3 people who take care of the hotel throughout the winter. Well, maybe not Danny Torrance since he's just a kid. And right before the hotel closes, they're given a tour throughout the entire facilities. And we meet a guy named Dick Halloran, and he's the head cook of the hotel. And more importantly, he introduces us to the Shine. And it just so happens that Dick Halloran finds someone who has a Shine. And it is Danny Torrance. And what the Shine is, it's this way to telepathically communicate with other people and your surrounding area. And this allows little Danny to see into the hotel's past and a little bit in the future. That's how he finds out about the little girls, that giant pool of blood, and red rum.
And Red Rum, yes.
Yes.
And since they're isolated in this hotel for 5 months, they start getting cabin fever, and they start going insane together.
And that's the basics for the movie. I read that the initial reviews for The Shining were horrible. People didn't like it. Stephen King, personally panned it because The Shining is based on his book that goes by the same name. He said it was horrible. He said it was a disgrace of his work, and people followed his opinion in saying that The Shining was just horrible as it was.
That's crazy, dude. And to think how we view The Shining nowadays is like a cult classic, like one of the best movies ever made. And Stanley Kubrick, it's basically Stanley Kubrick's legacy as well. Like, when you think of Stanley Kubrick, you think of that movie, like right on top of your head. Also, Jack Nicholson. I mean, whenever you think of Jack Nicholson, a few movies come to mind, but The Shining is definitely top tier for him. He was obviously he was acting, but you could tell he was crazy. And I guess that's why they chose him as the Joker for the 1989 Batman, and he did a stellar job in that too. So it kind of picked up his career, I guess, in a way. The Shining made Jack Nicholson who he is.
And to end this topic, we would just like to say that to both Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick, that both of them are masters in their field. But Stanley Kubrick is a great director, and moreover, he's a visionist. Whatever he envisions in his mind, it's usually going to play out in his movie. And that's how he turned a great book, The Shining, into even greater cult classic, The Shining.
So this is the point where you should probably stop listening to this podcast if you haven't seen The Shining, because we're going to talk about our own theories and about the ending of the movie and what it means.
Well, first spoiler, Jack Nicholson dies. But that, for me, that wasn't the biggest surprise, because there's that meme floating around where you see Jack Nicholson dead in the snow. But I was actually surprised.
I mean, I completely forgot about that meme, so no, I wasn't ruined by it. But
no, was it? But I didn't think knowing that ruined it for me, because for the entire movie, they're building up, right, that Jack Nicholson's crazy and everything. But when they actually kill him, they only show that frame for 2 seconds. It's that classic shot, but they only show it for 2 seconds.
Yeah. So, I mean, is he really dead?
Oh, yeah. He spent the entire night outside in the blizzard.
Well, I don't know. There's probably theories that are no, he didn't die. He was already dead, wasn't he?
Oh, that's the thing.
You see?
So, what do you...
He was already dead. Okay, so at the very end, one of the very last shots, if not the last shot, it shows a wall with pictures, and
in that picture
in
from
that
like
picture,
1930s.
1930s, you see Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
In like,
It's like exactly him, and that's
and
and
so
that's like
was he like
that was more
reborn?
shocking than his actual death to
Was he
me.
reborn, or like, you know, like, what even happened? You know, there's so many questions, and I mean, it's Kubrick. Like, we're never gonna really know. We're never gonna really know, but that's what makes the movie so good. Like, you can like theorize. Okay, there comes a point in the movie when the wife is running away from Jack Nicholson, and she comes across a room with a
Oh, like
butler and a guy in a bear costume.
oh yeah, I think that's just Kubrick messing with us,
Like,
just like to show that like she thinks she's very insane.
like, what does it mean?
I don't know.
Why is there a
The ghost of
man?
some guy in a
Why
bear
is there a
costume.
man in a bear costume?
But was it throughout the entire movie when you see red rum on the wall? I thought, oh, that's something that happened with Charles Grady, right? When he murdered his family,
Yeah.
he might have, I don't know, just
Oh.
he might have just like
Oh.
gotten a finger of blood and written red
No,
rum.
no, you know what I was thinking?
What?
When he was saying red rum, I thought that he meant Charles Grady was like, he drank wine before killing his family, and that's what was happening to Jack Nicholson. He started drinking again.
Oh.
And so I was like, red rum, like maybe he was also an alcoholic and
Maybe he
murdered
was
his family.
intoxicated when he killed his family.
Yeah, like Jack Nicholson. But
well, Jack Nicholson didn't drink. It was all in his
it
imagination.
was in his head, but I mean, it was so real for him that he must have thought that he was drinking.
Oh man, was it? No, but I thought it was great when out of nowhere he wakes up and he's like red rum, and going insane, and then he gets what was it lipstick, and he gets lipstick and he
Yeah.
writes on the wall. I'm like, oh my god, there it is.
And then the camera pans to the mirror, and then it says murder. So red rum is murder backwards. And
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been so like easy to figure out, but I was so engaged.
I actually did figure it out.
I was so engaged in the movie and like so in the moment that I just didn't piece it together until that shot, and I was like, wow.
Okay, just out of context, 30 minutes into a giant sidetrack, Victor and I are arguing on whether the majority of the conflicts in the movie happen due to supernatural forces or because the Torrance family has simply gone insane. Victor's talking on the behalf of insanity, and I'm defending the supernatural. Here we go. Okay, so in the movie, Charles Grady kills his family. You know, kills them with an axe and then chops them up, puts them in a closet. And he worked as a caretaker before Jack Nicholson. But during the movie, Jack Nicholson talks to Charles Grady, and Charles Grady tells him, "You're the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker." But
he's imagining him. Like, he knows the name. He heard the name and he knows what he did. And so, since he's going insane, he's just remembering everything that's been happening. So, I completely doubt that was actually the murderer.
So you
that
doubt
was just Jack Nicholson
imagining
being insane.
some face.
Yeah, that was just him being insane. Because it's just... That's
Out
what
of
I'm
nowhere.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
Because
how would... Unless it was a ghost, how would Jack Nicholson know all that? Like, we get the point of view of Jack Nicholson. And so, like, if it has to be, like, either supernatural or it was all going in his head. And I think I'd prefer it to be, like, he's going insane.
Yeah. Because the thing with this movie, you need to analyze it and figure out what parts of the movie are him going insane and what parts are just supernatural. Because, like you said, him talking to Charles Grady, now that I think about it, that's probably him going insane.
Yeah, that's him going insane.
But stuff like The Shining, where, you know, you see him in the 1930s photo, I think that's supernatural. Well, no doubt that's supernatural. So, I don't know, maybe just everything until the very point in the end where you see him in the photo, that's all.
I mean, I'm
him
pretty
going
sure
insane.
there can be an explanation to how it's not supernatural, and that photo at the end is, you know, something else. Like, maybe it was, I don't know, some weird explanation to it. Like, the wife, Danny, and Jack were all going insane together. They were all seeing visions, and they were all just couldn't stand each other anymore. At some point,
Okay, what's it?
reality merged with, like, their imagination, and it just seems like it's real. But do you really think that there's ghosts in this movie?
Yeah.
Or yeah?
Well, yeah, of course, because the little girls.
I
Well,
mean, yeah,
Danny
but
has Danny has a Shining. It's confirmed that the Shining is something actually real. Because
or do you think Danny was also going a little
well, no, because
crazy?
he talked to was it Dick Halloran? Dick Halloran said, "Hey kid, you want some ice cream?" In a
Yeah.
non-pervy way, but oh, what if Danny imagined Dick Halloran? No, because Dick Halloran brings the snow cat at the end of the movie, so it's confirmed that he's an actual living, breathing, tangible person. Okay, first, Jack Nicholson never tells his family about the murders, right? The murders that happened
Well, we
before
don't
him.
know that, do
Well,
we?
no, he never tells them.
Like we don't see it on screen.
Well, we never see it on screen, and I presume
He never.
Jack Nicholson is never gonna tell
he
him.
never. Actually,
Because after that, remember in room 237 when he sees the lady,
yeah.
he didn't tell his wife that. He just
Yeah, he
walks in.
didn't. Yeah, it's
He
true.
walks in. He's like, "Oh, there was nothing," right? Even though he was like, pissed his pants. But what I think is that Jack Nicholson never told his family. Little Danny never knew about the murders. He's just saying to himself, "What's going on? Why am I seeing little girls everywhere?
Right.
And why are they covered in blood?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an even bigger scare for him. And apart from that, little Danny saw a woman in 237 and she scratched him.
Right. Yeah.
Later we find out Jack Nicholson goes in the room and he finds the woman too. So that's two people who saw the same woman, right? Or it could just be just might be a case that little Danny imagined something, his dad found out, and in his fear and insanity when he walked into room 237, he also imagined a woman, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
But that still doesn't explain how Danny got a scratch on his neck. Like
Look, it's because. Man, it's like.
it's a great movie. We're not trying to confuse you or anything.
Oh no, not
It's one of the best movies we've ever seen. It's that the plot is so complex. There's so many twists and turns, and it's a roller coaster of emotions, and it's so great. But in the end, it leaves you with this feeling of I want to see it one more time, see if I can solve it. It's like the movie itself is a mystery, and you're so wrapped up in it by the end that you just love it. You love everything from it. 2 hours and 40 minutes in all, right? But was it? You just always want to see more of it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I saw it twice, and I mean, there's still so many unanswered questions. I mean, my personal theory is that basically everything they saw was their imagination. But I mean, you brought up some good points about how would Danny know about the twins? But I mean, maybe we aren't shown everything, you know? Maybe we aren't shown every single piece of dialogue. And
well, of course, it's
and
there's cards saying too much.
You could think about it for yourself. Yeah.
But such a great movie, man.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for this episode.
Yeah, was it? Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. We'd like to thank all the people who make this possible. Our CTE director, Ms. Castillon.
And their teacher, Mr. Sanchez.
And most importantly, we'd like to thank
Stanley Kubrick
and Stephen King. I'm Agustin Lopez.
And I'm Victor de Luna.
And this has been AV Weekly.
Red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum.